When 21st century history of Kenya is written, one of the most captivating chapters will be that on what became of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Samoei Ruto, two men who started out as friends, weathered many storms together, but were eventually separated by diametrically opposed political interests, which will define Uhuru's very succession.
It was that bad.
NTV has spoken to a number of friends on both sides of what is now a big divide in trying to piece together the genesis of the political fallout, one of the most dramatic in Kenya's modern-day history. Was it a marriage of convenience that was always bound to come tumbling down, or did politics get in the way of a Kenyan Cinderella story?
It was not a love affair.
The glue that brought these two people together outside politics was the ICC indictment.
The problem between William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta is nothing but family, St. Mary's, close friends, and children of the people who ruled with Jomo Kenyatta.
I met a friend who is very well connected with the power that be, who told me in confidence that they will not support William Ruto come 2022.
Ruto went far. He went up to Uhuru's bedroom as far as the interests are concerned.
A point reached really in our government, in the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he shook hands with Raila, we all breathed a sigh of relief.
When Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto arrived on the scene as president and deputy, the first elected presidential pair in line with the 2010 constitution, they captured the imagination of many Kenyans.
IBC certifies that the candidate who has been duly elected the President of the Republic of Kenya is Uhuru Kenyatta.
An unlikely victory that even the duo admitted in not so many words, coming on the back of a fight of their lives as they sought to ward off grave charges at the International Criminal Court, following the 2007 bungled presidential election. But this was only the culmination of a checkered journey that had seen the duo come together and part ways at different points in their careers.
I haven't cried in years, and it's only my mother who is here today who can attest to
that.
Legislator Moses Kuria is the outgoing member of parliament for Gatondo South, the constituency of President Kenyatta. A key beneficiary of the Uhuru wave in the region, in the two elections, Kuria has since parted ways with the president as part of the grand fallout in the Jubilee government. An erstwhile ally of Uhuru, he traces the journey of the Uhuruto story to 1995, in the final decade of Daniel Arap Moi's rule.
Among the people that Moi trusted with the Uhuru project was William Ruto. Yeah. So Joshua Kurei and William Ruto were the people who were tasked by Moi to chaperone Uhuru's entry into politics. Obviously, I think Moi had his own succession designs, for his last term. So that project was very important for him.
Kuria is now a Chama cha Kazi gubernatorial candidate for Kiambu County and claims that William Ruto had been detailed by Moi to teach the young Kenyatta the ropes of Kenyan politics. Ruto was already in the thick of Kenya's murky politics, having made his controversial entry through the infamous Youth for Kano 92 or YK92 lobby group, which pushed for Kano's re-election in the country's first multi-party election under Moi. In the subsequent election in 1997, Uhuru would contest the Gatondo South parliamentary seat on the back of a strong anti-KANU sentiment in the region. But Moi, the self-declared professor of politics, had more tricks in his bag. In 1999, the then so-called Mr. Fix-It of Moi's regime, that is Mark Tor, was prevailed upon to step down as nominated MP to pave way for Uhuru Kenyatta. Ruto's allies say even then the current DP was still by Uhuru's side.
Even when he failed on that, when he didn't get to parliament, it was William Ruto who actually did the heavy lifting to that culminated in Mark Tor, the late Mark Tor was a very close friend of mine. And I got this from Mark Tor, you know, we were very close, to actually help Uhuru to get to parliament after Mark Tor resigned. That was 1999. So by that time, you know, Uhuru and Ruto were inseparable.
KANU infrastructure was handed over to Uhuru. Ruto happened to be one of the key players of the Nyayo infrastructure. Biwot, Kulei, all of them, Gideon Moi, all right? So Uhuru just inherited the Moi infrastructure.
There are different accounts as to how Uhuru Kenyatta took over the leadership of KANU, but the bottom line is that they were together in Kenya's grand old party with William Ruto, who had since become a member of parliament, having won the Eldoret North seat in the 1997 general election. And so, even when Uhuru ran and lost the presidential race in 2002, Ruto was one of the politicians by his side when he conceded defeat, following Mwai Kibaki's historic victory.
I accept the choice of the people, and in particular, now concede that Mr. Mwai Kibaki will be the third president of the Republic of Kenya.
If it was a job, it could have ended in 2002. Because after 2002, Moi was no more. Moi was out of power. Moi had left, you know, but they still stuck together up to, again, we now go out to 2004, 2005, during the KANU elections in Kasarani, when William Ruto was elected, now post-Moi, when Uhuru was elected chair, and William Ruto was elected Secretary General.
The true Ruto was the 2007 Ruto, 5 years down the line.
The two would remain together and eventually found natural allies in Raila Odinga, who had since fallen out with Mwai Kibaki, following the disagreement over the controversial Memorandum of Understanding that Odinga and his team accused Kibaki of trashing. Uhuru, as opposition leader, with Ruto and other key figures in KANU, joined Raila faction of government in rejecting the then proposed constitution in the November 2005 referendum.
Uone Wakenya wako wapi, na ni wakina nani utaweka kando, na ni wakina nani wanakudanganya.
But with a new election looming in 2007, the duo parted ways for the first time, as Uhuru chose to back Mwai Kibaki's re-election bid under the Party of National Unity in the face of a formidable threat by Raila Odinga, who had since converted the Orange movement into a potent political juggernaut, and that is ODM. Ruto chose to throw his lot with Raila Odinga, becoming a consequential member of the Orange Party and its kingpin in the Rift Valley region.
College in Elders held a meeting, a very big meeting in Eldoret, and they summoned William Ruto, and they asked him, you know, are you going to join us? And he said, no, I want us to support this old man. I have agreed with Uhuru, and we know how we will tame him and his people. So please give me the blessing. I close up and work with the Kibaki. And the elders told him, my friend, you are too late. Now we are in Kiboswa. The next minute we'll be in Kisumu. We are just knocking. Yeah? And that's how Ruto reluctantly, quite reluctantly, you know, worked with Raila against Uhuru and Kibaki.
But that election was about to redefine the relationship of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto for years to come. The disputed presidential election outcome plunged the country into one of its darkest political moments yet, as ethnic bloodletting, looting and widespread violence engulfed various parts of the country. At least 1,300 people were killed in the ensuing mayhem, and more than 600,000 others displaced from their homes. A frenzied international mediation effort eventually quieted the chaos, leading to the formation of the Grand Coalition government.
We do have a deal.
Vile sasa wananchi mmekubaliana tufanye kazi kama wananchi pamoja, basi tuelekee huko na tuache fitina.
Tunataka kusahau yaliyopita. Najua kuna wengine watasema tio mbona Raila amefanya hii, amekubali hii, lakini Kenya ni muhimu zaidi kushinda Raila au mtu mwingine.
After the Grand Coalition government and our differences emerged with our party ODM, Honorable William Ruto and a team that he leads, we walked out of ODM and joined PNU.
But for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, the real drama was yet to begin.
Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta.
It soon became clear that the International Criminal Court, which was until then an unknown entity in the country, had trained its eyes on Kenya, with frequent visits by its then chief prosecutor, Luis Moreno Campo.
Thank you for your presence here.
And eventually on 15th December 2010, Ocampo finally unveiled his mysterious list of 6 people who had been fingered over their alleged roles in the 2007-2008 political election violence.
He authorized the police to use excessive force against civilians in Kisumu and Kibera. They were shooting and killing more than 100 people that they didn't identify as supporters of the other party.
Among the 6, 3 were associated with the ODM side, namely former Cabinet Minister Henry Kosgei, radio presenter Joshua Arap Sang, and William Samoei Arap Ruto, who had played a key role in mobilizing the ODM vote in the Rift Valley. On the opposite side was then Police Commissioner Major General retired Mohammed Hussein Ali, the then head of Public Service Francis Mudhaura, and Uhuru Kenyatta, opposition leader turned key supporter of President Mwai Kibaki. Facing an existential threat, Uhuru and Ruto were about to be brought together again by fate.
We brought together elders from the Kalenjin nation and elders from the Kikuyu nation who sat together and agreed. And by the way, William Ruto had refused to be the running mate. He wanted to run as president, Uhuru to run as president, and then they come together in a runoff. And I remember telling the deputy president, my friend, if you can do it in a runoff, you might as well try it in the first round. In any case, if you don't get it in the first round or even in that runoff, you'll be in The Hague. So you either agree now to come together and work towards victory, or you hang separately.
The glue that brought these 2 people together outside politics was the ICC indictment. And you know, the ICC was both local and international conspiracy to lock out William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, who were serious competitors in the 2013 general election, and to give a through pass to Raila Odinga.
A growing consensus was building around the 2 politicians that they had no choice but to come together.
There was one Harambee, if you remember, for the Mau evictees at Pan-Africa Hotel. And that is the beginning of the new phase of their life. So that time they are still talking, you know, rapprochements, pole. Then this Harambee, which happened to have been somewhere around 2011, if I'm not wrong, or 2009, I remember. Ruto made the thinkable move and invited Uhuru to preside over the Harambee for Mau evictees. And Ruto was fought by his people. How can you invite our enemies? How can you do this? And Uhuru was viciously fought by both the Kikuyus, the Gema, yeah, within now the Kibaki side of government, but also by his coalition partners. Now William Ruto now goes to his people to tell him that he has decided to work with Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember, they have now the ICC issue on their neck. Oh, and they could not understand. How can you take water, instead of pumping it down to the lake, you are pumping it up the mountain? They couldn't understand. That's the analogy that the encouraging elders again used. But he really tried, and he convinced them that this is the best thing for them. Let them work together. We have got ICC here. In any case, whether we win or we don't win, this is the only formula that we can be able to have our people to live together.
All options were now on the table. They had toyed with the idea of running for the top seats themselves, but the case was proving to be an impediment. Some in their ranks weighed the possibilities of enticing some of their allies to go for the top jobs, with a view to shielding them from the ICC monster. The names of Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka featured prominently.
At one time, in a meeting where I was, Kalonzo Musyoka told Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto that, you'll only be jailed for 10 years. So let me become the candidate, the president. Then after 10 years, you'll come out. And I remember that meeting ended there and then after that statement. It was the most reckless, irresponsible statement.
By the time they were pushed to their core and agreed to work together, one thing was top of their minds: fighting the ICC cases. But their publicly stated political narrative was uniting their communities that had viciously fought each other in the previous elections.
In their merger was the ICC case. The ICC case was a political case. It was not a legal case. So we have agreed in principle that we must deal with it politically. How do you deal with it politically? We must be the ones running the next government. I don't want to go into the details.
They formed themselves into a formidable political coalition. They ran a highly charged campaign with anti-Western sentiments, selling the narrative that Kenya's former colonial powers were seeking to recolonize the country through the ICC cases.
Na kwa marafiki wetu wa nje, ningependa niseme hivi. We as Kenyans have gone through very difficult and trying times. But we ourselves also have the solution to our problems. We are now under a new constitutional dispensation that has been passed by Kenyans. And the fundamental basis of that constitution is to give our people the freedom and the right to choose their elected representatives. We are asking those who are going around in courts thinking that they can elect the people of Kenya through the court or through the legislature or through the executive. We are telling them through the constitution, Kenyans themselves have the right to elect their own leaders.
The unlikely victory brought home many questions. Was it a genuine reconciliation, or was it a marriage of convenience that will soon be tested by the reality of running a government?
I, Uhuru Kenyatta, in full realization of the high calling I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
But the Uhuru pair gave the country no time for guesswork. Instead, they they hit the national headlines with what appeared to be a new style in statecraft. They wore matching shirts and ties, and like true lovebirds, finished each other's sentences. They appeared to mirror the Barack Obama-Joe Biden fairy tale that was unfolding thousands of kilometers across the Atlantic.
Actually, the election of 2013 was a peace dividend election. It was not a love affair. It was people sacrificing for the sake of peace of this country.
We thought we had arrived in terms of a really shared presidency, not shared constitutionally, but the two fellows who cared so much about the country, given the past that we had come from, and the communities they represented. We thought that was a very good thing.
So close were the two that at one point, when the president left the country to attend his ICC case, he signed a public decree to leave his deputy in charge. But it didn't last long. Unbeknown to the public, suspicion and discontent was already brewing in the Jubilee House.
Of course, there was really a desire to change things and to transform. They worked very well, 2013, 2014, 2015. I think around when I personally started sensing there's something, was in 2016, when Uhuru's case was dropped at the ICC, ahead of Ruto's case.
I was involved in the president's campaign in 2016, 2017, and I know he was fed up, right? But it was between a crocodile and a shark. On one side was Ruto, and the other side was Raila. So he had to choose which one should eat him up.
From the time the president won his second term, the second election, his advisors were ready to have a deal with Tinga for the next 5 years, and isolate and kill completely the dream of Jubilee Party of uniting the country, of William Ruto succeeding the president within the 10-10.
The sense of betrayal was setting in and things were no longer at ease.
We are not using him to get the 2017 vote. We could have got that vote even with another combination. We could have got that vote even with Luias, for example, with Eugene Wamalwa running mate.
It was obvious who was preferred, and the preferred was Eugene. Yeah, it was. Remember, the first meeting when Eugene was told to be running mate, I actually had come from Meru. If you go back to your records, with Uhuru, when we opened the Central Bank Center in Meru town, and when we landed, we went for a talk at KU. And from that, when we were talking with James Wang to the children, from that talk, Uhuru told me to call Eugene. And we went somewhere. And Eugene refused to be running with. I remember some people very close to Uhuru. Some of them were his relatives. One guy asked me at Jacaranda Hotel, why are you trying too hard to save Ruto? Kwani Uhuru cannot get another deputy? I said, Hela. That I knew publicly there's no problem. There's no even indication of any problem. But this guy who is actually a very close relative to Uhuru Kenyatta asked me, you mean Uhuru cannot get another running mate, even if William Ruto is taken away? Then I started saying now here, there must be some people who are corroborating this thing.
Until 2017 election is when cracks emerged. And in all that was just the beginning of the common thing in Kenyan politics, politics of deceit, politics of betrayal. And this you'll find it in every government.
Is it before or after the election?
No, just before the election. Even there were people who were thinking of, do we replace William Ruto with Kalonzo Musyoka?
But in the run-up to the 2017 general election, the duo put on a brave face. They denied any suggestion that all was not well in the coalition. They will shoot their campaign videos together, made light of the awkward moments before the camera. They were here to show that the 2013 spirit that catapulted them to victory was still alive and well. But in the background, disquiet was growing apace on both sides.
He would line up permanent secretaries aligned to him. He would line up parastatal heads aligned to him. And they had targets to take money to Karen on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And it was not sustainable. So I think by the time we were coming to the 2017 election, the boss was fed up.
Or you can at least sum it up into two. One was greed. Greed. And two was using blackmail as a weapon in the political arena against the president.
I wouldn't call it corruption. I call it, rivalry in terms of influence. Yeah, they wanted to. They were saying time is running out. When are we going to control this government? Yeah, this shared government. Why are you sharing? It's supposed to be all ours. So it's not really corruption. Don't think that it's because they were cleaner than Caesar's wife. Their intentions were very clear.
There was a game, there was a plan, there was an instruction where somebody of the magnitude of the office of the deputy president would pick up the phone call and call junior procurement officers and give them orders about how to procure and about who to award tenders.
We have to accept that at a personal level, the deputy president has done well for himself. He's a tough bargainer. He's become a very rich man at a personal level. I mean, I don't know, they talk about 5 choppers. He admitted the other day to 2,500 acres of land in Taita area. And he's a rich man, that's for sure.
How is it possible for somebody to sustain a campaign for 5 years without conducting a fundraiser out of his pocket, 30 million a week, which is 120 million a month, which is 1.5 billion a year, which ends up to 7.5 billion to date out of his pocket. Hata kama anauza kuku or its eggs or whatever, it is not possible.
From the time the president was sworn in Kasarani, the president started implementing the politics of deceit and betrayal and humiliation.
According to Murathe, a key ally of President Kenyatta, Ruto's political ambitions had got the better of him and were now rocking the boat from within.
He started scheming the 2022 immediately after they won the 2013 election, all right? To a point where post-2017, there were even fears about the person of the president.
When I met them first, when I met President Uhuru Kenyatta at the memorial service of the father of Mudavadi, he asked me and his people asked me, why are you fighting the deputy president? I told them that one day you people will assist me to fight him because he's in a rush for gold. You don't do that. You go slowly by slowly. It takes time. There is no shortcut to leadership and there is no shortcut to riches.
But we realized the president was implementing in his second term. He needed us in the first term. He needed us to cross the bridge in 2017. And once he crossed the bridge, he said, now I'll remove the ladder. And by the way, he did that.
The maximum number of...
With the 2017 general election drawing closer, both sides seem to have agreed on a temporary truce to allow them to cross the hurdle of an election they both needed to win for different reasons. This is when Uhuru made the remark that would haunt his succession game plan through his final years as president.
Mimi nawaambia kitu kimoja peke yake, ya kwamba wagojee miaka 10 Uhuru amalize kazi yake, alafu wagojee miaka ingine 10 Ruto amalize kazi yake, alafu sasa wakitaka watakuja sasa waunde yao ambayo watakuja kusema ni nani atakuwa ndani, nani atakuwa nje.
You know, yangu 10 na yako 10 could have two reasons or two meanings. One, it could have been genuine. That kind of working together, sharing past, going to ICC together, now running government together, just to show how close they were, you know, especially being under attack from the opposition led by Raila Odinga. So it could have been genuine. He meant it. But it could also have meant you are trying to get Ruto and his people to think you are with them, to support you until you get 2017.
This would have been the moment to begin parting ways, now that they were across on the other side. But a Supreme Court decision nullifying the results on September 1st, 2018, threw the entire Jubilee House into chaos.
As a Supreme Court, they cannot overturn the will of the people. Lakini Maraga thinks he can overturn the will of the people. We shall show you in 60 days that the will of the people cannot be overturned by one or two individuals.
4 people and overturned the will of the people so that the will of a few people in court can prevail. We want to tell them it is not the Supreme Court that is supreme. It is the Kenyan people that are supreme.
Harambe! A recent leaked audio featuring the deputy president has served to shed light on the goings-on at the moment of confusion as the reality of the verdict sank in.
Watu wengi walikuwa nafikiri sasa ikisemekana turudie uchaguzi ati tutawachana na Uhuru. Sijui kwa sababu gani watu walikuwa naamini hivyo. Lakini mimi nilitoka hapa kwa ofisi na nilikuwa nimemwambia Uhuru, hii chunga hapo iko Kiingereza. Akaniambia hapana, nimechunga kabisa, kila kitu iko sawa. Kulikuwa na mtu mwingine anaitwa Nje, sijui nani. Mwisho mlango kumbe ilikuwa wazi, wengine wakaingia ndani wakaharibu. Si ndio? Mimi nikatoka hapa, nikafika State House. Kufika State House nikakuta rafiki yangu wako hapo. Sitaki kusema alikuwa anafanya nini, kwa sababu sisi ni wazee. So ndio huyo sasa hii maneno sijui nini, mimi sitaki mimi nataka kwenda Ichaweri, wewe sijui sasa mimi sitaki, wacha tuachane na hii kitu. Mimi nikamwangalia nikamwambia, wewe ni vile tu nilikuwa na heshima, ningemchapa kofi.
Ndio mimi nasikitika hapo nikiona wengine ngwe mtu amekuwa huko amepewa kazi, badala ya kazi ni mdomo. Alafu sasa mimi tutafanya na kwa nini hukufanya wakati ulikuwa huko?
Until the unthinkable happened on 9th March 2018, when on a seemingly normal morning, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his perennial nemesis Raila Odinga buried the hatchet and shook hands on the steps of Harambee House. That development threw off both friend and foe on either side of the political divide.
We have come to a common understanding, an understanding that this country of Kenya is greater than any one individual, and that for this country to come together, leaders must come together.
In the life of any nation, a time comes when the people and their leaders must audit the progress made towards the attainment of the goals and prayers laid out at the founding of the nation.
While the handshake was styled by the duo as a peace pact and a roadmap for long-term stability in the country, Ruto and his allies saw a hidden agenda, and that is the 2022 succession matrix.
The moment the handshake happened on the 9th of March, on the steps of Harambee House, Ruto's future was almost buried. What had seemed so obvious changed with that handshake. Because I do not, in my estimation, think there was going to be anything that was going to stop Ruto from the presidency until the handshake happened.
After 2017, there was closing of ranks between family and close friends. And now Uhuru could not withstand. Because before, if family was against, close friends could give him emotional support. If close friends were misbehaving, he used to turn to family against the whatever. Now after 2017, they morphed into one, and Uhuru could not resist anymore. So he backward.
A point reached really in our government, in the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, when he shook hands with Raila, we all breathed a sigh of relief. And you remember, from that time on, it was possible to pass bills in Parliament without depending on, you know, that side, so-called Tanga part of the Tanga part of Jubilee, because we were being blackmailed by Duale, we were being blackmailed by Ruto.
The president would call a PG at State House, and he was busy demobilizing and mobilizing people not to attend a PG, called by the party leader, a party parliamentary group meeting. He was busy stopping guys even at the gate of State House to turn them back with promises of money.
The handshake had now become the new front line in the Uhuru to proxy war.
If you are not going to table these documents...
With the NASA team on board, Uhuru's legislative agenda in Parliament had been rescued in the face of rebellion from the Ruto team that had since acquired the name Tanga Tanga.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
But the parliamentary leadership was still dominated by Ruto loyalists, with Aden Duale serving as majority leader in the National Assembly and Kipchumba Murkomen playing a similar role in the Senate.
The president came to me face to face and told me, Honorable Duale, you have a split loyalty between me and my deputy. Please make a decision, join me in the war against William Ruto. And I told him, no, I am a Muslim. First I said that I'm a Muslim. What has William Ruto done to me? I joined even this coalition through URP. But above all that I saw in William Ruto was good deeds.
Uhuru cracked the whip in the middle of 2020, ushering in a new phase of the Uhuru to war.
Mr. Speaker, in my previous responsibility as Senate Majority Leader, I did my best to push government business in this House and to defend the President and his administration whenever they came under political attack.
At this point in time,
Duale and the others had been accused of, among other ills, frustrating government bills in the National Assembly.
The president, a point reached that he could not take the blackmail, and if Raila was being used as the weapon for blackmailing him, that look, you'll not have enough people in Parliament to pass any bill, the moment there was a handshake with Raila, that was the end of the blackmail.
The firing of Duale, Murkomen and other Ruto allies such as Professor Kithure Kindiki, Kimani Ichung'wah and Benjamin Washiali from key positions in Parliament allowed the president to have his way in both houses on subsequent businesses for the remainder of his time, but it set free an army of critics that would elevate the anti-Uhuru rhetoric into a full-blown public brawl.
At times, I used to wonder, surely, does President Uhuru Kenyatta know what he's doing? Is his intention maybe intended to help Ruto? Because he knows how sympathy politics occurs. Yeah? There is no way you can go and publicly humiliate your deputy and then you don't expect your deputy to accrue political sympathy.
So unusual was the new arrangement in Kenya's politics that Ruto himself would later lament about it at various addresses, including outside the country.
I am the biggest loser when it came to the collapse of Jubilee. I had invested, the same way I see that passion in you, I had invested a lot of emotion, a lot of effort in building the Jubilee Party. Unfortunately, we tried. The members of my team who are sitting here, who are members of Jubilee, know that I was the last person to accept that we move out of Jubilee.
The BBI.
The attempt by the handshake team to introduce constitutional changes through the Building Bridges Initiative BBI raised the political temperatures even more in the Jubilee House, that was by now only existing by name. With the DP and his allies vehemently opposed to the initiative, and Uhuru and Raila pushing it relentlessly, what was supposed to be a national healing agenda had now become one of the most toxic issues in the country.
I remember one of the most agonizing time we had as William Ruto allies and key leaders around him was how do we approach BBI. BBI, you know, had sweetness, and on the other side, it had some poison. So for us, it was, we were at River Jordan when, peace be upon him, Prophet Moses was running away from the Pharaoh. And so we were wondering how to cross it.
BBI then, to all observers, and Ruto included, must have been seen for what it was, an infrastructure to help Raila and Ruto and Uhuru get power in 2022, an infrastructure. And certainly not in the interest of Ruto.
With the fallout now almost total, Ruto converted what was by then a growing class narrative of hustlers versus dynasty into what he styled as a revolutionary economic model. He called it bottom up.
Bottom, bottom.
Describing it as a move to lift the most vulnerable in society out of their poverty. With the bottom-up narrative, he painted his boss President Uhuru Kenyatta and his new-found ally Raila Odinga as out of touch with reality, accusing them of focusing on changing the constitution rather than changing the people's lives.
The defiance is what has built Ruto's hopes, and his attempt to be president, his campaign, I should say, is buoyed by that defiance and rebellion. And BBI is part of the things he did to endear himself to the people.
In the final days of the battle, the focus has now been on Uhuru's Mount Kenya backyard, with opinion polls largely suggesting that his deputy was in pole position to get a majority support. In that vote-rich region, Uhuru has mounted a spirited fight back, openly endorsing Raila Odinga for president, reviving his once dormant Jubilee party, and stringing together a coalition of more than 20 other parties to prepare for the final showdown with a man who was once his bosom buddy, or was he?
I don't even understand when people are making so much fuss about Uhuru abandoning Ruto. It's politics. When it serves me, you are my friend. When it serves you, I'm your friend. When I'm no longer useful to you, that's it. When you are no longer useful to me, that's politics. Politics is not about how you look, how I love you. No, it's not love. Politics is politics. It's about power.
Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.